Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to City Council Chambers. We are here tonight to have a conversation on short-term rentals, and we appreciate everyone for joining us for your time. Thank you for your time. My role here tonight is mostly to listen. I have spoken to the Vice President about the forum and the idea that there's a lot of community input and interest. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to City Council Chambers. We are here tonight to have a conversation on short-term rentals and to understand everyone for joining us for your time. Thank you for your time. And I'm certain that here tonight is listen. I'd like to thank you all again. I'll turn it over to interest. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to City Council Chambers. We are here tonight to have a conversation on short-term rentals. Thank you everyone for joining us for your time. We are here tonight to have a conversation on short-term rentals. Thank you everyone for joining us for your time.
Just give it 1 second. It sounds like someone is live streaming the meeting. It does not have your muted. Okay. So Vice President Lupian, very glad that you're all here. It's a full house for everyone on Zoom. I've gone around the East District. Feedback, regulations for short-term rentals. I'm excited to open up the forum to the whole city, and I see a lot of faces that I met with over the course of the last 2 months. So as soon as Ryan, would you look at the slideshow? We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Oh, Ryan, I'm sorry. Can you close the YouTube? Do you see that link of the YouTube tab? I think that's where we're going to put that. Yeah, you can put that. Yeah. Did you share the screen? Hybrid meetings are a new thing for council. We haven't done them very often, so there we go. All right. So can you go to the next slide? So the reason we're here is that with our current zoning code, there's zero regulation on Airbnb's short-term rentals. With the proposed zoning code, and we'll get into a little bit later, the proposal is to regulate, to ban them altogether in low density and medium density residential, and then to have no regulation on high density residential. So some of the reasons that I've heard from some of the constituents that we might want to regulate short-term rentals is that they can be a nuisance to neighborhoods. Certainly not all of them, but in some neighborhoods they've had a lot of issues with Airbnb tenants, and someone coming in the neighborhood and making it seem like they're going to be living there and being their neighbors, and then kind of having a bait and switch and then having Airbnb. Neighborhoods wanting a little bit more stability. To increase the supply of housing in the inner city, we're experiencing a housing shortage, especially with affordable housing. With Airbnb units, it does take them off the market for our residents, as well as our hotel utilization is still lower than it should be for this period, especially coming back off of the pandemic. So that's kind of the background of why we're here. And the proposal that we've come up with, and I'll read it to you, but with the caveat, we're here for feedback. So this is very much a mark in the sand to get started in terms of the discussion. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing you all tonight. But the elements of this particular proposal is to create a permitting process, and that has a publicly available registry. And the permitting would be only for owner occupants or your primary residence. And I've said this already tonight. one of the things that we ran into is that there are city residents that do have Airbnbs. We have a couple up front who will tell us their story about how they're using the Airbnb to finance actually fixing up residences to rent to our community. So that's a point that I'm sure we'll have some discussion on. And as well as enforcement, right now in the proposed zoning code, there's no real mechanism for enforcement. And so we're proposing that we do something called platform accountability. This is where the platform, like the Airbnb, would not allow someone to process a transaction unless they have
The lady speaking?
legal short-term rental hosts.
Is there any way we can see that TV?
You're not able to see it?
That's pointed to you, it's not pointed to us.
Maybe you can just pull it backwards.
Get it over here. Go through here.
That TV,
Yeah, you can see it.
that's pointed to you, it's not pointed to us.
Okay, so data that Airbnb does not release data publicly, but we have sites that do approximations. This is from Airbnb. That there is in Rochester, and as you can see the graph, numbers are growing significantly. Data by Airbnb does not release data publicly, but we have sites that do the approximation. This is from Airbnb. That there is good access. Closer, you see it in the graph. Right now, it requires rentals to register with the county, but register and the registry is not. The county does tax them with an occupancy tax as if they were a hotel. They've secured the agreements with the platforms directly, and that tax gets taken out automatically. So the city of Rochester zoning proposal, and again, there are 3 additional feedback sessions for the zoning library project specifically, which include short-term rentals. But the proposed zoning code splits short-term rentals into 2 parts. Those that are in your primary residence and those that are not your primary residence. Those are in the zoning code, they refer to short-term rental as only those that are not in your residence, and they're classified the that are in your home as a bed and breakfast. But both of them are rentals that are 30 days or less. I think that the thing that we might realize as we're going through this, and maybe the zoning alignment project has missed this point, is that it really stays silent on right now the bed and breakfasts are a rental that's also 30 days in your home that provides a meal. So there's nothing that is currently defining a short-term rental in your home that doesn't provide a meal. So I think that's something that's going to get changed, but just to be aware. So there is a survey. When you came in, there's a paper survey, and then if you'd like to take it online, you can go to the, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to rebrand.ly/ROC survey. And it gives you some detail and asking your feedback on specific questions, not just about the proposal, but also some of the feedback items that I've gotten while touring the neighborhood association, so that we can get a more granular understanding of where you all are at. And so in terms of the format of this forum, we are going to have a presentation from Michael McKee, the Coalition Against Illegal Hotels in NYC. So New York City very recently did the platform accountability where they regulated their short-term rentals to only those in your primary residence. And they went from 23,000 Airbnb units, I say Airbnb, but I mean short-term rentals, in the New York City area, and that went down to 3,000 after they passed the legislation. So we're going to hear from him a little bit about how the platform accountability piece works. Is anything to take on the slide? You can ask Michael McKee to speak. Might just stop screen sharing. I see that Michael's on there, but I'm not sure if he's, there we go. All right, Michael, are you ready? And after Michael is done speaking, we also have, if you have questions that are generated from what I've talked about, what Michael will talk about, Ryan over here in the picture has Post-it notes. If you'd like to write down a question, and we can gather them, and we'll address them in a question and answer period, which will be about 20 minutes, and then from 6:45 to 7:30, we'll have testimony from the audience. Whoever would like to come up to speak will kind of form a line, and we will try to limit our comments to 5 minutes, and when it gets to 5 minutes, we will ask you to end your comments, and if there's time left over, which I don't think there will be tonight, we'll go back to questions and answers. All right. Michael, we're ready for you. I'm not sure you can hear us.
Michael, can you hear us? Ready there.
I wonder if you can type in the chat.
Hey, Michael, can you hear us?
If this is not working, we'll just go to question and answers, and hopefully Michael can jump on a little bit later. Okay. All right, so raise your hand if you have a question, and Ryan will come over with a post-it. Oh,
Are you ready for me? I'm sorry, but I have not been able to make out anything that's being said. The sound quality is so bad.
that's unfortunate.
But I just got your note in the chat. So does that mean you want me to speak now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
can you hear us? We're ready for you.
Good evening. My name is Michael McKee. I'm representing the Coalition Against Illegal Hotels, which is a New York City-wide organization that's been in effect since 2004. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through all right?
1 second, Michael, we're trying to increase the.
All right, Michael, try talking.
Okay, hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
I can
fine.
hear you.
I'm representing the Coalition Against Illegal Hotels, which is a New York City-wide organization that has been working to end illegal hotel activity in New York City since 2004, which I would point out is 4 years before Airbnb was even formed. It took us 7 or 8 years, but we finally got the city council to pass a bill 2 years ago, which just went into effect on September 5th, to enforce the laws that have been on the books in some cases since 1929, which make short-term rentals illegal in New York City. That is to say, a rental for less than 30 days, that is, unless the prime resident of the housing accommodation is physically present in the housing accommodation. I'm happy to report this local law 18 which went into effect September 5th, has been extremely effective in cutting down on the number of short-term rentals and especially illegal rentals. I understand in Rochester, you first need to pass a zoning code or other local law that would regulate short-term rentals. The point of Local Law 18 is not to define what is legal or illegal. Those are issues that are covered by the state multiple dwelling law, as well as portions of the New York City Administrative Code, like the Fire Code and the Buildings Code. All Local Law 18 does is make it easier to enforce the law and to prevent the kind of illegal activity that many hosts have been able to get away with for many years. The way it works is that a host must apply to the city through the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement. So you need to think about who's going to enforce this in Rochester. The host has to apply for a registration number, and only if the host obtains a registration number from the City of New York can the host engage in short-term rentals. And only legal short-term rentals are eligible for a registration number. So any host that is engaging in illegal activity is not eligible for a registration number. And the platforms like Airbnb, as well as the other platforms, are forbidden. They're not forbidden to advertise because you can't really, the Federal Communications Decency Act creates some problems there, but platforms are not allowed to enter into a transaction with or collect money from any host who does not have a current valid registration number. And the platform is required to verify that the registration number is current and valid before they enter into the transaction. This is cut down on illegal short-term rentals with a remarkable speed. Prior to September 5th, we had like 33,000 bedrooms being advertised on Airbnb alone. And we're down to now like 3,000 short-term rental listings, according to Inside Airbnb. This has been a very, very successful means of regulating this and enforcing the law. And I would just emphasize that this is not a law that makes anything legal or illegal. It gives us, the city, a means of enforcing what was already on the books. So I would encourage the city of Rochester to enact this kind of law. We base this, by the way, on the Santa Monica law, which has been very successful in Santa Monica, and which, by the way, Airbnb sued the city of Santa Monica 3 times to overturn the law, and only when they lost the 3rd time in the federal court did Airbnb enter into an agreement with Santa Monica and agreed to abide by the law. The same thing has happened now in New York City. Airbnb sued. They had a group of hosts sue. The Supreme Court threw the cases out on August 7th. To our surprise, Airbnb did not appeal, but announced that they were going to comply with the law. And it was at that point that they notified their hosts that they needed to register with the city and obtain a registration number.
Thank you very much. I think, I think really highlight the point.
I still can't really hear very well, so if you have any questions, I'll stay online. You can put them in the chat, and I'll answer them in the chat.
Thank you. But the proposal has 2 pieces. One is what is legal, and the other is how to enforce it. And so what Michael was talking about was really the enforcement piece of whatever it is that is legal, you need a permit in order to process the transaction. And I think that isn't as controversial as what we consider to be a legal short-term rental. So if you guys have questions on your post-its, raise your hand and I will collect them. And if it is a question for Michael, we'll put it in the chat.
you tell us again who this gentleman is?
Yes. This is Michael McKee from the Coalition Against Illegal Hotels in NYC. So he was telling us about their local law 18 that was recently passed to use the permitting system to enforce the existing laws in New York City as to what was a legal short-term rental.
Where's he from? Is he from New York or is he from California?
He's from New York City. He was talking about their law being based on a Sacramento law. Okay. So there are some questions about zoning specifically.
I think it was said, I think it said Sacramento.
Thank you. Okay, I have one. As a property owner, there is far less wear and tear on homes. Properties are well maintained and we are in fact ambassadors for the city. How would you reply to that? So I think this is pointing out that Airbnbs take care of the property. Ambassadors for the city. I think that the implication is that not all Rochester renters will take care of the property. And I think that's,
they made the speakerphone, you know.
Landlords that own properties, that's a whole other issue of whether or not those homes are well maintained. I think a lot of that responsibility can lie with the landlord. We do have many landlords that don't screen their tenants very well, or they're not even in the city of Rochester.
We're not here to discuss landlord tenants, we're here to discuss Airbnbs. There's a big difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental.
Yes, thank you.
And I think that you should maybe take a tour of the short-term rentals and take a look at the properties and how they're maintained versus long-term rentals in the city of Rochester and see how the properties look and are maintained.
Well, there's more than one type of.
Okay, so this is already getting a little,
Because you addressed it as a problem, and I just wanted to bring that up. We walked in this room and the first thing that you say is, this is a problem.
what I said was that I have heard these issues brought up by my constituents, and this is an attempt to address the concerns that I'm hearing, and I do want to get some feedback. And I think the way that we've decided to take questions is a little chaotic. And so some of these questions are about zoning, what's considered high density residential, what's considered low density residential. And I don't have that zoning in front of me, but that is on our city website in terms of, the exact zoning code. A lot of it is as renaming what we would call R1 is low density residential, R2 medium density residential, R3 high density residential. But the exact definitions that I don't have in front of me. This question, what is the city policy permit, etc. against short-term rentals? Right now, there isn't one.
But fine.
There will be time for comments. Right now, I'm trying to attempt to answer the questions that people have for the next 15 minutes, and then we're going to open it up, okay? What is the legal activity? I think that's a question for Michael. What does he mean when he means illegal activity? I think that would be whatever if we had regulations around short-term rentals. So in the proposed zoning code, it's proposing to ban them altogether in low density and medium density residential. So if there were an Airbnb in one of those zoning areas, then that would be, I think, what we would term an illegal activity. This is, as you mentioned, imposing an occupancy tax at a hotel. This is actually, the county already has an occupancy tax that we take out automatically. Airbnb is already charging this. I'm not proposing anything additional. I noted that short-term rentals in New York City dropped for Michael from 30,000 to 3,000 as a result. This is a comment that is killing thousands of small businesses. How many people have been able to buy a home because of this? How much have rents decreased? I'm not sure if Michael has that information. We can type it to the chat. This question is about describing what the permit process will look like. I think that is very much open for discussion. Michael discussed a little bit about what their permitting process looks like. This one says, will short-term rentals be allowed in homes and apartments in the DMV and high-density residential zones? In the current zoning proposal, they would be without regulation allowed. And the new changes in the zoning code would take effect, I believe, at the end of next year.
Can we hear the question?
I was reading the question. So when will the changes take effect? I think at the end of next year. Will numbers of units be limited? I think that's part of what we're discussing tonight. You know, my original proposal had the idea to regulate them to only primary residents, but again, I encountered someone in my community that is using Airbnbs, who lives in the community, and that has 2 Airbnbs that finance all of the renovations that they're doing in the neighborhood to rent out to our residents. And so, you know, what the idea is if we decided to limit to limit it to primary residents as well as owners who live within the city of Rochester, then the question came up, well, if we do that, is there a limit to how many someone can have? This is all, again, what I'm hoping to get feedback on, and those questions are on the survey. How will the city make up for the lost revenue taxes from limiting short-term rentals? I think that's something that isn't necessarily guaranteed to happen. You know, one of the thoughts of meeting the regulation or the benefit of the regulation might be that hotel occupancy would increase. So I can't answer the question how we'll make up for it. When the city policy permit, yeah, it's against short-term rental. That one is, we don't have anything right now. Some of these are duplicates. What is the proposed price of the registration permit? Again, this is something that we haven't decided anything about the permitting process yet. I wonder, Ryan, if you can check into the chat how much, if any fee that they're charging in New York City, just to get an idea. So this one, why is the city considering this commercial use of property? Bed and breakfast, as well as other short-term rentals that cause issues in neighborhoods. Why legalize it? And how do you think bed and breakfast will affect stable neighborhoods? This is just my personal opinion that renting a bedroom in your house is not going to destabilize neighborhoods. This is something that I personally have done in the past, is renting a bedroom in my house, and it's been a great way to make a little bit of extra money, as well as introduce people to the neighborhood. Okay, I think I have answered all of the questions. Are there any additional questions? Got one?
Mayor, first of all, thank you for holding it so we have an opportunity to speak today. Secondly, I noticed that there's now a frequently asked questions section added to the city website as of yesterday. And it speaks to the short-term rental question, but I think it satisfies, in my mind, the question that I had with regard to low-density residential areas, the old R1s, most of the LDRs, and the medium-density residential areas, the MDR. The Q&A that was published yesterday says outright and flat that there are no short-term rentals allowed in those districts going forward.
Yes. So when
That's a little bit more of a statement than I've seen in the
Yes.
past.
and it's a
And it
direct.
clarifies the question that I think a lot of us have with regard to the neighborhood we're concerned.
Yeah, so the gentleman just mentioned that there's a Q&A or a fax published on the zoning alignment project website that addresses specifically short-term rentals. And I think that's a result of some of the back and forth that we've been doing about the feedback that we've gotten from the neighborhood groups. And it definitively spells out that they will, short-term rentals defined as those that are not in your primary residence will be disallowed in LDR and MDR from R1 and R2. But that if it is in your primary residence, it is considered a bed and breakfast, and that is allowed everywhere. And again, none of these stipulations in the zoning code have a component for a registry or a way to enforce it, really.
So it really comes
Just to add-
down to just, if my understanding is that short-term rentals of the types we're talking about, Airbnb, that's just a service part. There are other organizations out there, businesses out there that are in the same end of short-term rental business. But if what we're talking about here, short-term rentals are being banned in low district residents and medium density residential areas, then I have less of a problem with the way the code is proposed. The code needs to be cleaned up if we're saying that in the Q&A. We don't say it in the proposed code. Let's get that language in the proposed code, that there are not to be any short-term rentals of the sort that are not bed and breakfast in LDRs or MDRs.
I hear your feedback, and they put out a draft zoning code. So now they're taking feedback, which they will then incorporate into the final zoning code that will come out at some point next year. Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, so just to everyone, the proposed zoning alignment, realignment here is proposed. So there's opportunity for public input and feedback. So while there's some things on the website or frequently asked questions that you might see, know that we're in a period in which public input is being considered, and that period will be open through January.
So again, for the next few minutes, I'm looking for questions and clarity on what we presented, and then I'm going to have folks come up to the podium to give feedback if you have comments or you want to share your opinion. So I see this gentleman right here.
I'm just trying to understand, I'm sorry, for sure, that's fine. I'm just trying to understand for sure. I was reading this put out, but then I heard what you said about the zoning and the distinction between if you live in the house, it's called a bed and breakfast, but if you don't, it's called an STR. So does that mean that the permitting, all of the rest of these bullet points under the 4 features, if you live in the house, they don't apply to you?
No, and thank you so much for bringing up that point. So it was clarity on the proposal that I have out there. It says regulating short-term rentals in Rochester, and I put this out more than a month ago. And during the neighborhood groups Thompson over here helped me to realize that the new zoning code had actually made that distinction. And so on the survey, you'll see that for the purposes of the survey, and the proposal, when I say short-term rentals, I'm talking about both. Those that are in the primary residence and those that are not in the primary residence. So as we're talking here tonight, if we're saying Airbnb or short-term rentals, we're talking about both categories, but just know that the zoning code has split them into two.
So just to make sure I understand, so I'm just 58-year-old person who lives alone in a large home that I'm renovating, and I have 2 nice guest rooms in my house. And I've been an Airbnb host prior to moving here for like 7 years. Am I going to need to get a permit, or am I?
So in
According to
the,
this?
yeah, according to this proposal, everyone who would be listing a property on Airbnb would need to get a permit. That way we have an idea of where they are and, you know, what you measure improves, you know, so we have an idea. But your example of living in a large house and we can mix guest rooms, that in the current proposed zoning code would be considered a bed and breakfast, and it would be allowed in all areas.
But this would be different.
Yes,
Okay.
Tracy.
So you made a mention about, Isa, I'm over here. You made mention about, the rates for this permit being compared to New York City. Trying to find out what they're charging, same thing with Santa Monica, California. Those places, their cost of living is triple, quadruple,
Right.
cost of living. So how will you effectively balance that according to Rochester?
So your question is, when we wanted to get an idea to gauge where New York City was in terms of what they're trying to get permits, that's not going to directly correlate to what we charge, it's just to try to get an idea, and obviously it would be adjusted. You know, their cost of living is much higher, as you point out. Yes.
Perfect. Do you know, roughly what percentage of the housing in Rochester is low density, one single lot or, a 2-family home?
That's a really good question. I don't have those facts in front of me, but the zoning alignment project is a map. And you can see kind of geographically how much proportion of the city is zoned that way, but I'm not sure in terms of the actual housing units.
And a secondary question, how will helping, single families and maybe 2 families get housing help more than like an apartment building, like, you know, like a medium, like limiting the amount of single zone houses that we have built for.
So is your question how, so the zoning alignment project lists the reason for regulating low and medium density is to increase available units. And I think your question is, what about high density? Is that
How
right?
is it helping more people by doing the single home and double homes?
I'm not saying it is.
No, I'm just saying.
The proposal that I have is to not regulate it geographically, but by owner occupancy. So that would apply to all zoning codes, and I understand that some people here are in agreement with that. Okay, yes.
Yes. First, thank you again for hosting this, and hopefully all opinions are able to be listened to. Makes me a little nervous when we have one person that's on the screen that obviously opposed Airbnb and tells us how it doesn't work. We're not looking at communities where it does work. And I'm just wondering, have we thought about how this can impact our city's tourism? We just had the PGA and all of our, which is a major event. We had a hotel that actually canceled hundreds of people, and they weren't, that's residents that wouldn't be able to come into our city. We have in April, the winter, or the solar eclipse, bringing tons of people from this region. So how are we gonna be able to justify that? The other thing too is we've got the Straw Museum of Play, which is very much a family destination. A lot of our hotels are not built for that, or, taking care of having young ones in there. So what is going to be the offer for those folks? What's going to be the economic impact to the businesses that are around that area too? So it's not just hotel tax, but also the dollars that each person that's coming into these neighborhoods, what is that going to be able to do? And then how are we going to make up that deficit? Because we have to invest in our schools, we have to invest into policing, we have to invest into our community neighborhoods. So what's going to be able to, what's the global picture going to happen?
Well, I think it's hard to talk in hypotheticals, right? I don't think we can.
I'm sorry.
I said it's hard to answer the question where we don't know for a fact if it will impact our tourism or our taxes, right? These are things that we have to examine. If there would be an impact, and I agree with you that the solar eclipse will bring an amazing amount of people into this area, but that happens, very infrequently.
PGA was last year.
I hear you.
Which is a closing bit.
Gotcha. Okay, did you want to say something? We have time for maybe one more question, and we'll open it up for general feedback. Gentlemen in front.
So just moving forward, moving back to the, you just pulled up all the same thing, so when we have questions that go back into the I see maybe 6 places in the city that might be high density residential zone. They're all apartments. So I see maybe 3 areas, like 6 areas in the city that might be high density residential zones, and they're just apartment buildings. And that's it.
Do you want to bring up the zoning map? So what he said was that the zoning map, he's seeing 6 areas that are zoned as high density residential that are mainly apartment buildings. We're going to bring up the map and share it with folks on Zoom.
Because I think that's what everybody's want.
Yeah, it's helpful to have the context. Thank you. So we'll get that going, but I'd like to open it up to comments. And so if you would like to come up to the podium, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to give us your comments, and we'll do the listening, and then we're taking notes. Push it so that you see the green button. And then make sure that it's close to your mouth. You ready to have?
Yeah, thank
Mhm.
No.
Yes, you might have to bend down a little bit, and if you wouldn't mind, yes.
Thank you for the opportunity for all of us. My comment is somewhat as the last question, not necessarily tourism related, but another segment of the society that comes to the sound for their health. I was in the area which is right next to the University of Rochester, Hospital. College town area with the single family houses, I was saying that I was talking about another segment of the visitors that come to our town, and those are patients and healthcare seekers, not necessarily tourism, which is very important, obviously. I host in the area right next to Strong Memorial Hospital, the college round is the single family houses. And we host a lot of people who need very specific housing. I host transplant patients who need mold-free housing. I host dialysis patients who come to Strong Memorial Hospital from all over, western region of New York. And transplant is the major center west of New York City.
And those people come with their families, they need to stay in a place which is mold-free, which is very clean. They can't stay in your multi-apartment buildings, they can't stay in a hotel for that reason. They have to be in houses which are animal and pet-free and mold-free. So that, where would they go? Has there been any input from University of Rochester, not only for these kind of missions, but their students, there are a lot of medical doctors who come for short-term visits, 3 months rotation or 1 month rotation, 15-day rotation for their postgraduate training. They need to live near the hospital where they can walk safely and have a clean environment where they can come. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you look at all the people somehow who come to Rochester, they don't come here to party. This is not Florida, this is not New York City, this is not Santa Monica, this is not wherever. People go and party and they create disturbance in the communities. Most of the people who come here are either coming to attend weddings, they are coming to attend colleges, universities, or the families visiting their students in Bahar, or that's my experience. And I'm sure a lot of people will agree that there is not many party seekers over here. Yes, there have been few incidents that has happened, but look at the majority of people who need a safe environment. They come with their families. So a hotel room in College Town at the Hilton Inn costs $172 a night. We provide 3-bedroom house for $150. A whole family can stay there. So look at the economics, and that family goes out and eats at all the local restaurants in College Town. So those are, yes, they only can have a broad brush to paint, high density and low density and all that sitting on a bureaucratic desk, but practical living is different than your broad brushing to these things. So thank you. That's
What's your name and then, if you work for your Rochester budget?
My name is Sayyid Shah.
If you live in the city of Rochester.
No, I live in Pennsylvania.
Hi. Hi. My name is Heather Gray. I own a 2-bedroom home in Southwest. After leaving a full-time job at Eastman Museum to pursue an art career, I became an Airbnb host to help cobble together an income. I've been a host for 9 years. I'm a super host, which is not an easy designation to achieve or to maintain. I screen heavily. I want to make sure. I screen heavily and only accept guests that have stellar reviews. I've not had any complaints from my neighbors. I'm a traditional host. I did not buy an investment property that is only used as an Airbnb. I rent my primary residence when I go out of town. It's good to expose visitors to the neighborhoods of Rochester, in the city as well as the suburbs. It's a very different way to visit, to see and experience a place. I'm proud of Wedge, how aesthetic it is and how walkable and bikeable it is. I enjoy being able to rent my house. It subsidizes my income, which is key. It also subsidizes the lodging in Rochester during key times when it's needed. PGA, there was one weekend that RIT, U of R graduation, and Lilac Festival all overlapped in one weekend. And of course, the total eclipse is coming out with the new lodging. I think there should be regulations in cases where a property is purchased as an investment, being run as a full-time business. I do not think owners that rent their primary residence should be regulated. Hosts like myself are a value to Rochester, and I don't want to see barriers and fees added to primary owners. It's a massive level of trust and screening to rent out your primary home, if any of you have ever done it. All of my things are in that house. That was my life. I've never had any problems because I screen heavily and I get great people. I feel that short-term rentals of your property, your primary residence, should also be allowed in low and medium density areas. There are not that many people that do this. There's not that many people that rent out their primary home. Just give somebody the keys and say, enjoy my home for the weekend. all my tenants in it. And I don't want to lose any of those hosts, including myself. So thank you very much for listening.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mitch Rowe, and wife and I own a home in Chevron in Northwest. I'd like to briefly share two perspectives. First, I'm the president of the Cherry Track Corporation, which is goes back to 1929, about 70 properties along each other corridor who collectively share a private beach immediately west of Turkey Beach Park. We're up to about 10% of those 70 properties on short-term rental. And we see people come out. I appreciate those that are here tonight in support of short-term rentals. I appreciate the tax and bringing people here. But when you see people come and go in an R1 single family neighborhood, you don't have that feel of the neighborhood. I'm sure you've heard issues of noise and parking. We experienced that. I would say for any of my neighbors that have short-term rentals that might be watching online or here, they do try hard to be respectful, and I appreciate that. But it is a concern. The other perspective that I'll share is somebody who's worked in government for 40 years now, a lot of years in zoning here at the city of Rochester, zoning officer and zoning director. Currently, short-term rentals in R1 are we have argue all day are in violation of the zoning code. Go with the definition of a family in the zoning code. Transient occupancy violates the definition. I had a chance to look at what the zoning law is certainly well. I appreciate it's out there and I'll look. But it is a balance because everything is life. But again, back to my neighborhood on Beach Avenue, it's a concern, and I hope that whatever changes come out, we'll be able to strike the right balance. Thank you for letting me speak.
Good evening. Is that all right? I looked at some of the concerns on the list, and I think they're all pretty valid. I think the party issue is probably a problem. If you live in the city, you may have issues with that. However, the city has a system to deal with nuisance properties. They have a nuisance point system. That system does work, I assure you. I have had hearings myself with the nuisance board. They're great people and they do good work. I think you have a mechanism in place already to regulate such issues. Airbnb also currently bans parties, so hosts that have complaints will be kicked off the platform. Home buyers losing opportunities to purchase homes as a result of out-of-state investors buying Airbnbs. I feel that is an anecdotal example and perhaps not best based policy on. I do understand the issue of perhaps local residents being outbid by other buyers. That I don't think that's an Airbnb issue. That might just be I don't think that's an Airbnb specific issue. Affordable housing. I know there's probably around 600 listings in the city. There's like 1,000 listings, but any unit that's rented by the room counts as like 6 listings. So there's probably 400 properties or so that are out there Airbnbs. The city has over 1,200 vacant properties in the city, and they have mechanisms to convert those. I think a far better way to turn on more housing is to use the tools like the land bank and the vacant housing grants to turn those properties on instead of trying to ban Airbnb operators from running their small businesses in our city. Lastly, the guests and hosts that come to the Airbnb space, they provide, the hosts are small business owners. I think as a city, we should support those operators. And then the guests, as another gentleman said, spend a lot of their money at local small businesses. If you're at the Marriott, you're going to go to a chain. If you're at an Airbnb in Park A, you're going to walk out the street to go to dinner. I think that is a huge asset to the local restaurant bars in our city. That's all I have. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Jacob, and I don't think my residency is relevant. Thank you.
Whoa.
Hi.
Hang on. I am, my name is Colin. I'm both a resident and investor in the city of Rochester. And I actually want to first start by thanking both of you for being here tonight. It's really the first time for anybody, so appreciate the time. And I want to start with a question for y'all, which is with the changes that are being proposed in this code update, what is the overall goal of them?
So I think we did touch on that, the stated goal from the proposed zoning alignment project is about opening up more residences for the city of Rochester residents. And the areas we're trying to address with the proposal that I put out is with that reason in terms of increasing the supply of housing, increasing hotel occupancy, and alleviating some nuisances that I've heard from my constituents.
Thank you. So it sounds like one of the large things here is increasing the level supply of houses, which is a very noble cause. And everybody in this room as a property owner who's bought in the last 5 years probably can attest it's been a difficult market. Have you or anybody in the city of Rochester commissioned a study that shows this as like the primary area where we can actually build density? I think the last gentleman spoke to vacant houses as an opportunity. Is there a study that showed this? And I'm asking, so I don't know. Is a key opportunity to increase housing supply?
No, we haven't done a study, but in terms of the ability, rehabbing 1,200 vacant properties is a lot more difficult and consuming and cost intensive than this proposal. So I think it's
Is there a study on that?
No, there's no study on whether or not opening up, regulating is less costly than rehabbing houses.
I think that could be a matter of opinion. I mean, we banned flavored vapes in 2020. Could walk to any smoke shop in the city of Rochester and buy a flavored vape. And that's because the Department of Health has 0 enforcement agents. And so they made the code, but there's nobody to enforce it. And so I think there is significant staffing concerns that should be considered when considering any sort of regulation. There's just maybe no regulation itself doesn't present itself.
I
solve the
agree.
problem.
Which is why I think we're talking about platform accountability to make the enforcement, to take that off the shoulders of the city of Rochester.
Understood. So yeah, I think like the general thing I'd like to sort of just propose is that as we go through this process, right, we keep a goal in mind of what are we trying to do. I think there's very clear processes for nuisance properties. I think a few people before myself have spoken to the fact that actually in a lot of cases, Airbnb owners are probably some of the most responsible on the block and do take care of both the neighborhood and the people that are visiting their houses, whether they live there or not. And then I just think on the issue of housing density and housing supply, and as you mentioned yourself, zoning is a huge, right, it's a huge blocker to housing and much easier than perhaps remodeling abandoned houses. And so I think while we're going through the zoning code, we should also look at how long does it take to get a housing permit to build a house, and what are the other blockers that we have that prevent people from being able to add the housing density? One of the examples I was talking about with the down here is if you were to, for example, tear down a garage on a property without getting some prior approval from the city, right, you probably would not be able to rebuild on there, whether it's another garage or a single apartment building. And so those are examples of where homeowners may naturally themselves add the housing density if they could, but the zoning regulations prevent them from doing so. And I would just, in closing, also just encourage everybody to approach this rationally and with, a matter of objectivity rather than emotion and subjectivity. I think there's always good opinions on both sides of, I live in this neighborhood and don't want this, or this is my income and I'd rather not lose my income. And so I think it's best for everybody involved to stick to matters of objectivity. So thank you again for your time.
My name is Herb Asher. I am a constituent of Yours Marriage. I live in your district. And I gotta tell you, I love the city of Rochester. I'm so passionate about this city. I volunteer in this city. And what else I love is all the people that are in this room, because you all love the city of Rochester too. It doesn't matter if I'm for Airbnbs or you're against Airbnbs. You're here tonight because you want to see a better Rochester. And that's what we need to focus on, is how do we make a better Rochester? How do we think abundantly into how we're bringing policies and how we're getting people to work together? When we're looking at this, when this guy comes in here, and I appreciate, he saw a problem with his city and he addressed it. And it got to that level. We're not New York City. I was just in New York City. I was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I was walking through those neighborhoods. And I'll tell you right now, there was a lot of people walking through those neighborhoods. Now, I will tell you some problems that we have. I have an Airbnb also in the neighborhood yards. And one of my folks that came through saw an armed robbery right across the street. That's the problem we need to be talking about. What we're going to get rid of, you don't need to say how we're going to stop entrepreneurship in the city. We've got to say, how do we embrace entrepreneurship in the city of Rochester? My guests that are coming next week are folks that are coming from the RBTL. I've got folks also coming through that is going to go into the union conference. There was a study done years ago, I think it was around 2015, around the lack of hotels in the city of Rochester and how we cannot have conferences in the city of Rochester. The city of Buffalo is investing $1.5 billion in a Buffalo Bills stadium, and they will never be able to host a Super Bowl. Why? Because of hotel shortages and that type of thing. We need to think abundantly in this. We can't go into this with a scarcity mentality. Santa Monica, everybody knows Santa Monica. Everybody knows New York City. It's a global destination, both those places, not Rochester, New York. But how do we make it a global destination when getting people together that are passionate about this city to help make right policy, to help grow jobs and more folks owning homes? Thank you.
Not gonna lie, it's a really tough one to follow on. My name is Ryan. I live in the town of Trili. I lived in Greece for 10 years. I am a short-term rental host in the city of Rochester in the downtown mixed use and high density residential district as proposed. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is from the perspective of rental arbitrage, because I don't actually own these properties. I lease them from landlords and have written agreements. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who does rental arbitrage, because I don't own the properties I'm in. I have legal agreements with landlords that I work with to make those properties happen. But my wife and I, we have 7 units active right now. And while I appreciate what the previous gentleman said about matter of fact, I think the people are what matter here. So I am going to make it a little bit personal in that my wife has been able to quit her job and stay home with her children because of the rental revenue that I have. So I'm very grateful for that. I'd also like to address that while some of us don't live directly in the city, I think everyone here cares about the city. My wife and I spend a lot of time here. We go to the restaurants on Park Avenue. Our church has a generosity giving center that we spend a lot of time at. We're Rochesterians. We count ourselves as Rochesterians. We are part of the greater Rochester area, and I think everyone outside of that matters as well as everyone inside of that. I am definitely for protecting the city from reckless renting, reckless stays. I've heard plenty of horror stories as a host, and I know every host here has. Unfortunately, a few of them have even slipped through my fingers. I did not always vet carefully, I do now, because I've had a few stays that have not been pleasant for me, for my landlords, for my neighbors, and that deeply grieves me. And I want to make sure that I do my very best to provide the best stay possible. I do think that there is a middle ground here. There is a need for watching these things closely, but I think the city also needs this industry. The nature of travel is changing. tourism is changing. People don't just want to stay in a room with a bathroom anymore. They want comfortable accommodations. They want a full living room. They want a full kitchen. They want close parking. They want to be able to live in a home away from home. And hotels just don't currently offer that. So much so that many of the cities that are imposing extremely tight restrictions and not allowing multi-unit hosting, they're seeing decreases in tourism revenue by several percentage points at least. I host all kinds of people visiting. I have a variety of people in the downtown area, the convention center. I get constant questions about the medical center. People want to visit their families and loved ones coming in for a conference. There's a wide variety of people that visit the city. And again, like many others have said, hotels aren't going to work for all of them. I'd also like to address the point of market saturation, which is an economic factor that is real and valid. And that point is that every market has a point where they're going to max out the number of units that are profitable for people in the area. So for people who are afraid that we're just going to keep growing and growing and growing and losing all of our housing, there's a cutoff point where that stops being profitable to host. And that supply and demand factor is self-regulating. It may be a point higher or lower than some people agree with, but it is a point that exists. Property scarcity, yes, this could be a factor. Like the previous gentleman said, I think there should be a study. Single-family homes, in particular, are not the primary target of Airbnb investors. We're looking for multifamily, looking for larger units, because obviously the more you can run out of one unit, the more profitable it is. So certain single-family homes, I do not think that's a primary concern. And then as far as rental property goes, there are tons in the city that do not allow short-term rentals already. Trust me, I have to go through a marketing practice where I have to pitch how well we're going to take care of the property and how good that agreement is going to be between us and the landlord. And tons of landlords are just not allowing it. So I can guarantee you there's no shortage of housing availability on the rental side of things. And I have yet to experience it.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask one follow-up question. You mentioned that there were cities that saw a change in their tourism. Can you give me an example of who developed?
I heard Los Angeles saw at least 8%.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. I know I can talk about. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. So I think I mentioned earlier, I am a homeowner, who is an Airbnb host in the home where I live. I moved here, I've been a super host, which is hard to do. I moved here, I've been a super host for 7 years. I moved to Rochester 3 years ago. The house I bought specifically because I could Airbnb host in the house. And because of that, and some health issues, I've now been able to become semi-retired. I work part-time for breast cancer charity, and the rest of my income is Airbnb income in my own home. It's a large house. I'm one person. I have 2 nice guest rooms. Those rooms could be filled and I could be there, and there's still only 3 or 4 people in my home big house. So I can't really speak to people who are running short-term rentals in dwellings that could otherwise be long-term. I assure you, I do understand the 3 bullets under background problem, but I suspect that there's a lot more nuance to that than the one that based on things people here have said, but that's not really where my experience is. And I guess if there's anything I would stress right now, it's that it's clear to me that within the umbrella of short-term rentals, Airbnb, how have you, specifically Airbnb, because I'm pretty sure VRBO, you can't live in the house, right? So when it comes to Airbnb, I really think there are 2 really different types of hosting going on. And I don't know that it makes sense to impose all of these other bullets. You could enact every single bullet at the bottom of this list on to me and other people that live in their homes, and it wouldn't address any of the bullet points at the top that you list as a problem. Because it has nothing to do with your long-term rentals. It has nothing to do with prospective home buyers. It's not about lack of affordable housing. So I guess where I'm coming from here this evening is feeling like I'm not sure if like a restriction is warranted, period. But for sure, there is a distinction between the types of hosting that are going on, and I'm not sure it's good to kind of put a heel on the littlest of the little guys when doing that doesn't really address any of the 3 bullet points at the top of this document. And I guess the last thing I would say, because people have mentioned a little bit the type of guests and how is this fair and the type of tourism is it bringing in. I can tell you most of the people that I host are travel nurses. It's dropping their kids off at Rizzi Middle College, and a lot of it's travel nurses and medical professionals who are coming here to care for us, possibly saving lives, and they only need a space about 2 or 3 12-hour shifts a week, or maybe 8 weeks, and then they're gone for a while, and they come back, but there's a constant supply. This doesn't work well in a hotel where you can't come and unwind, you can't make yourself a snack, really, unless, microwaves is best. But you can't, they're coming, they're staying with the night, and then they're, moving on. It just, other types, there are guests that need the type of service that the in-home host, or even the not in-home host is providing. So, that's it.
Thank you. Thank
I'm sorry. What's your name? My name is Pam Young, and I live in Maplewood. Thank you very much.
I'm Bob Thompson, I'm sure that I have a Neighborhood Association. I'm going to make this relatively quick, maybe take Mary off the hook a little bit. I think there's a little bit of confusion going on right now. Mary's talking about regulating short-term rentals, meaning perhaps registering it, collecting a hotel tax. She isn't necessarily talking about uses. Uses is zoning. And Mary is not taking care of the zoning alignment project. Anybody that's interested in that, please come November 8th to the open house that zoning is actually going to be hosting at the Ryan Rec Center. It's the first open forum for it. In any case, registration is not necessarily a bad thing. By registering, there is a measure of accountability that's set up so that if you have a bad Airbnb host, or if you have an Airbnb host who happens to not be present at a party of 100 kids, at least we know where to look and who to contact to get that remedy. Registration also protects the other Airbnb hosts for the same reason. You have a bad Airbnb, if they lose their registration, they get delisted from any of the hosted websites that are out there, and they're no longer basically in business. I have no problem with that. Do I think Airbnbs belong in LDRs and MDRs? That's not for me to decide here. I'll take that up with zoning and give them my input there. But with regard to registration and from a municipality perspective, putting in some accountability, I'm in favor.
Thank you. I think it's always mentioned that we are sharing this feedback with the zoning people as well, so they'll get it from, if there are different zoning issues, they will hear about it.
I'm going to be talking about the zoning issues.
You can talk, go ahead, Mary.
And simply, I am all for people, making money. I mean, it's the American way, and I'm all for it. However, not at the expense of other people. I'm co-chair of a neighborhood that all of a sudden they started opening these Airbnbs, and 6 people were shot, 1 died. Where
was that? The Northland Village.
Northwind Village.
And when was that?
Last year.
Yeah.
The neighbors here.
Another
Another one,
I'm sorry, can we let her read her comments? Thank you.
another one, they had over 100 bids in. It was a mess. They had to have the police. The whole street, the lovely street was in chaos. I'm sorry. I'm for you making money, but I'm sorry. You would depreciate the value of my house. And I think if the city puts this through, and in R1, you are liable if my house depreciates in property values. In being co-chair of a neighborhood, we work 24/7 on community, working together. Community takes neighborhoods and people together. Bringing in R1, R2 breaks down community. And also, what happened to the hotel downtown? Across from the convention center? What happened to that?
There's plans to reopen it.
Well, here we go. We're gonna open a hotel. It's up to the city to go after an open hotel. All right? And also, Mary, I know you're running rooms. Did you check the sexual offender list to make sure your neighbors with children were all safe and everything? There's a lot to this. So, I'm not for it. I'm for community, I'm for businesses. The city planners from always way back when have planned cities with commercial, residential, all different forms. Now, this city wants to break it down. So, sorry, not now, thank you.
I just want to, I know this is a topic that gets some people's blood boiling, right? But I want to make sure that we're giving respect to the people that have the mic. Thank you.
So my name is Melanie Burrell. I live in the city of Rochester. I've lived in the city since the 80s. I've either rented my own apartment in the city or in 2001 with help of a really good real estate agent. I bought my first house in the city. Since that time, I've managed to either by myself with my husband or with an LLC that we have. We acquired 6 properties, all in the Upper Northern neighborhood, all within 1 block of each other. Those 6 properties represent 11 doors. Of those 11 apartments, 3 of them are Airbnbs, and one constitutes 1 whole house and another apartment in the whole house. And as I said, I've lived in the city for a really long time, and rented and been an owner in the city. And any of the problems that, with all due respect, the woman before me was addressing, Alliance Avenue, which is where I live. Prior to me owning any more than 1 house, there was a party on my street in a rental, and they had 300 people on the street and a dozen cop cars. And so to say that with the advent of Airbnbs, suddenly people are having parties in the city, and that are going to need to have police attention is a little bit naive, because it's been happening for a very long time. And as a city resident, I can attest to that. As for my Airbnbs, the guests who come through my house are people that are here for weddings and funerals and to take their children to the Strong Museum of Play. As a matter of fact, my husband just had to leave for an issue. I had an Airbnb, but it wasn't an issue anyways. And those people came in at the very last minute for a family funeral. I have a friend of mine who is a hotel manager, and she likes Airbnbs because she can refer her overspill guests to Airbnbs when her hotel is full. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say that the hotels are completely against the Airbnbs as well. So we have this group of people that are coming into the city for amazing reasons, because we have an amazing city. We have a a lot of festivals that happen here, we have a strong museum to play, and they come into our city also because we have an amazing healthcare system. And I have also hosted people who are in here because their child needs to go to Strong Museum for a specific thing that they can't get in their own hometown, and it's not appropriate also for them to stay in a hotel. So there's a lot of different reasons. The people come here to Rochester, and I'm very glad that we can host them in our Airbnbs. I am a super host, but whatever. What I am is a proud owner of a property that people like to come to, and I've had repeat guests enjoy their time here. I am the proud owner, we are the proud owners. We are proud owners of 2 properties that when we purchased the properties, one there was a grow room in the attic. And the other one, they had dogs that were fighting on the 2nd floor. So I took both of these properties and I rehabbed both of them with my own money, our own money. With our own money, it's in there. With our own money, and they are beautiful properties. And you could ask any person in my neighborhood whether they'd rather have a drug dealer in their neighborhood or whether they would have me as my Airbnb guests, with our Airbnb guests coming in and out of the driveway. So, and I do take one issue with one thing that was stated before. If there are 1,200 vacant houses, it's not easy to rehab a house. We've done it 5 times. But we've done it. And we've spent our money doing it. And they are beautiful homes. Apartments. 6 houses. In my neighborhood, there are 2 houses that we went through yesterday, 3 vacant apartments. There's another house around the corner with at least 4 vacant apartments that has been vacant for years. And yet you're coming after me, who has a beautiful property in a great neighborhood in the city of Rochester, and I love what I do. And it's very, it is profitable for me, but it's also profitable for the county because I pay taxes, county taxes, I pay the hotel tax, and I pay a personal tax, my personal income tax. And, oh, and I've had my CFOs done, and they all passed the flying colors. So, thank you, yeah.
Hi, my name is Chloe Johnson. I grew up in the city. I live and own my own house in the city. I graduated from city schools, and I work for a nonprofit that does work in the city. So I'm fully invested in our city community. I'm also very much against investors being able to come in and buy short-term rentals. I live a couple houses down from where the shooting was on Illinois Street. I'm raising my young family there. Obviously, that was completely traumatic. But aside from that, there were parties at that rental before, and there's other Airbnbs in our neighborhood, and there were parties there. And like I said, I grew up in the city. Marilyn is in line. She can tell you, I also threw parties in the city as youth. The police were also called. Poor Marilyn still loves me somehow because I'm part of her community. So when I threw a party in the city and the police were called, my community came and talked to my mother, to me, to everybody, and I was in trouble. And I learned and I grew, and now I am still throwing parties in the city. But respectful parties in the city, and I am still a community member in the city. I volunteer, and these investors are not part of our community. I do understand that if you are living and renting out your room or living on the street, that is very different. But these investors are not planting flowers with us at the North Lincoln Village. These investors are not going to Nexons to get ice cream. These investors are not going to Henry's. They're not going to the Ugly Unicorn. They're not community members. Their Airbnb guests are not going to these places in the community because Rochester's small and they don't know about them. They're just not part of our community. And when you grow up in a community and you choose to raise your children in that same community, you would like there to be a community there, not just renters here and there, parties, you have to go. I already have a full-time job and 2 young children. I don't want to have to police other people's homes and bring complaints to the nuisance board and do all this. I understand if you are living at your Airbnb or on your street and you are able to do that yourself. But if you're living in Shiloh, if you're living in Penfield, if you're not even able to tell us where you're living because you don't think that's important, then you're not a community member. You're not part of my community. And I don't want you profiting off of the work that I'm doing on my weekends. I'm fixing up my neighborhood. I'm investing my bonus money to my house. And now you're coming into your investment and you're profiting because you can get a higher rental because I'm doing what our community does, taking care of my house, taking care of my neighborhood, and now you're making money off of me. And that's just not right. Thank you.
I'm going to stay a little bit longer. So what I'd like to do is unfortunately reduce the time from 5 minutes to 2.5, so that we can get through the rest of it in the next 10 minutes.
So say this in 2.5 minutes. The American flag have one in front of all of our units. I'm a proud veteran. When I come to the community, plant flowers. When I have my handyman make sure the properties are in a better condition. And when we initially got them, the neighbors around me, they love it. They love the fact that they see, even though we don't live in that property, they see us picking up trash around the area. Now, I have no issue at all with a registry, because I think that will raise the bar and you're gonna raise the quality. It's hard to be a super host in the Airbnb platform. I have to vet so many of our guests. It is almost irritating. However, 90% of the people that we're hosting, they're coming to the area to heal. 90% of my guests are traveling nurses. What a change. What a change. Years ago, when my father was employed, it was Eastman Kodak. Now it's the U of R. We are providing a service to these traveling nurses. They're not going to get in a hotel. They're working 12, 16 plus hours a day. They just want a nice, clean, comfortable place. They don't want to go to a hotel. They're not a nuisance for the community. Now, there were some accusations that were made that we're not investing in the community. That's not hoax at all. And it doesn't matter. You have a lot of real estate investors that don't live in the city, but they're still committed. My dad lived in LB in New York, and he was a real estate investor. So it doesn't matter where you live. It matters where you invest your time. So I just really think we need to have a registry with this idea of banning it. And the way the map reads, I'm a little troubled because all I see is apartment buildings. In that zoning area for the high density, my traveling nurses don't want to be in an apartment. They want to be in a home. They want to be in a home away from home. That's my time.
Thank you.
My name is Wayne Stewart. I'm a city of Rochester homeowner, born and raised in the city of Rochester. I'm just not clear on how the whole zoning area was determined, or how the information you guys received, the feedback you received, I should say, was gathered, because as everyone previously mentioned, Airbnb mostly provide a vital service. And it's, as everyone mentioned, it's primarily travelers. The situations that occurred with those violent acts in the city, those were presumably local people who booked properties, which, you know, that is a concern for Airbnb hosts when they're vetting, guests, potential guests, and, you know, go through that process to determine which, you know, guests would be suited for our properties, but, we provide a valuable service to travelers to Rochester. And, I just, you know, a lot of the comments that were previously made is already something that I wanted to speak on, but I just want you guys to just consider this proposal and just, you know, allow it to be just for us, because a lot of us became Airbnb hosts for income. You know, I started Airbnb a little over 3 years when I lost my job, and that was a final source of income for me. The different regulations on it, it's just make people feel like, who are you to tell us what to do with our properties, you know? So just consider the people like us who, you know, live in our homes, who Airbnb it as a source of income, and, you know, just make it just. That's all I want to say.
John Schnapp, I live in the Silver area. I've lived there for about 8 years now. I'm not smart enough to talk about taxes and revenues and things like that. There's been a lot of talk about tourism and, you know, all the benefits of Airbnbs. My concern is what makes Rochester a better place to live. As somebody who lives here, as somebody who lives next to an Airbnb, and Airbnb is one reason I don't like living in the city. And granted, this is just my experience, and this is an Airbnb that, by all means, right, I'm sure they screen all their guests, the property's clean, no problems there. But I don't know who those people are. They get to screen them. I have to get strangers next to my house every night. There's nobody that lives in this house, so I have no way to contact these people. The owners don't reach out to us. They don't talk to us. They come, they turn over the rooms, and then they leave. So who am I to go to if there's an issue? And we've had it. I've had somebody drive into our fence because they put a parking lot next to our house. In the city, they took a nice grassy lot and paved over it so that the customers could have parking. That's not nice for me. I don't like looking out my window and seeing a parking lot. What am I missing from this? I'm missing friends. I'm missing neighbors. I'm missing connections with my community. There's just a black hole in the street. I have no one to go to. The city's told me I need to call 911 if there's any issues. I feel like 911 has better things to do than answer, you know, a fight on the street for an Airbnb for people that should know better, for adults, for grown-ups. That's my take.
I just want to say, after you, sir, we'll cut off. Okay, so we have 6 more. I don't think we have time, but I have to figure out my daughter, so I want to make sure. But if I have to leave, President Melendez will stay.
I'm gonna be quick. Just a couple of things. You mentioned a couple of times that the hotel numbers are down. I think when it pertains to short-term rentals, that's an indictment on what hotels offer. And I don't know if anybody else mentioned that, but I think that Airbnbs or short-term rentals offer something unique, and they're filling the void, obviously, with the supply and demand. People are, if Airbnb numbers are up and hotel numbers are down, then obviously hotels need to do better. So that's one thing I would say. And then as far as the zones, I think with zoning and short-term rentals and how they relate to each other, there needs to be more than just 3 blanket zones for short-term rentals. I went through this with property I have up in Lake Placid, and there is like a bunch of different zones for a very diverse rural village type of landscape when it comes to short-term rentals. And so I think that's important to, yes, you know, have different ways of approaching different neighborhoods, and splitting it up into 3 is bonkers when it comes to something as diverse as short-term rentals when it pertains to one neighborhood versus another, especially the guy mentioned he lives by the hospital, he's got a place by the hospital. That's a very unique situation that you can't just blanket zone 1, 2, 3, that's it. So that's,
Did you say your name?
no, Alex.
And are you the city register resident? Yes.
Hi, thanks for presenting this opportunity to the neighborhoods. I'm active in the North Trenton Village Neighborhood Association and also the St. And in our neighborhood, in North Trenton Village, we have suffered from the Airbnbs with the partying that's been going on. I'm concerned about it. I think it's not a very good avenue to take. And I experienced it myself even with in my own area as far as the Airbnb that have been running out with the people on Main Street. The parking is terrible. The party goes on. And it's irresponsibility as far as property ownership. I just feel that if you're going to go with Airbnbs in our neighborhood, which I'm strongly against, it has to be a firm regulation because our people deserve it. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. I'll try to make it just very short, but my neighbor that discussed, this issue of living on the street where the murder took place. Yes, we have worked long and hard for decades to improve the neighborhood, to have a quality of life, to make things safe, to make it beautiful, to make people want to live there. And the problem is, it's very frightening, and like the other man said, when you don't know who's coming, who your neighbors are, you lose that community feeling that everybody is kind of working together to have a quality of life. It has safety, quiet. That is one of the main reasons of buying a home, is to have peace and quiet and a little bit of support. The question I have, we have a number of out of the city people here tonight. Now, have they thought about having these bed and breakfast and Airbnbs in their own neighborhood? Child life and have them, Pittsburgh should have them. We don't have to have everybody coming and sit and causing more of a disturbance. We just kind of hear why this, why do we want to do it? The other thing is people are making money off the property. It's a business. We've got a commercial endeavor going on here. So financially, they should be paying higher taxes because they are running business. I'm here to talk about it. And if you thought about really.
They are paying taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that Marilyn is asking questions of you, so maybe this is something you can take off with.
I'm asking a city if they're considering they had an Airbnb or a bed and breakfast, and people are making money instead of going to a regular job. I work and pay taxes on my job. Why not people? Houses people. It's a business.
That's just
And
an
you don't usually get business in neighborhoods.
You pay taxes on your Airbnb income.
Yes.
They also.
There is an additional
There's money to bring.
Who said we don't pay enough tax?
Okay, we're giving respect to the person with the mic. President Melendez did say that we acknowledge that you all pay taxes.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to ask is have you really thought seriously what can happen to city neighborhoods that are stable now because of all the hard work, volunteer work that's done in these neighborhoods? When efforts are going down the tube, have you really thought about what could happen if things get out of here? And my other question is.
Marilyn, sorry, your time is up.
You have a hard time monitoring a lot of other things, code violations.
Marilyn, I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got 4 more people, and you and I can have this conversation. Okay, I'll answer your question. Thank you.
My name's Matthew Green. I'm a lifelong Rochester resident. I've lived in the city since 2009. Property in the neighborhood area, buy my home, that's probably go off. Probably about Valley Gallery, Valley Gold, there's just a litter area. I understand there's a lot of safety concerns with some of the partying that goes on, but there's a house, a couple houses down from me, there's supporting us. There's gotta be cars, 20 cars that park there. I make calls, nothing happens. So there's a lot of issues we have to deal with. I think there's a lot of compromise when it comes to putting together this proposal. You really look at the zoning, right? I'm not a zoning expert, but maybe we should look at, doing some more funding for some income-based housing projects. I think downtown is, just driving around, you can see the amount of buildings that are just vacant. And then my neighborhood alone is probably a dozen homes within a 2 or 3 block radius that have been occupied for years. How about we put together a program, for example, where you can work with some real estate, someone, someone who has a good reputation of fixing up rental homes and really fill that gap. I don't think this lack of housing that you're claiming, that only should be put back on us. One other suggestion I was thinking of doing, we could maybe do too, is your proposal, how many Airbnbs are in your district right now? Then let's do a 1-year pilot of your proposal in your district and see how it works out.
No.
My name is Greg Berger. I am a city resident. Clearly, from all the people here and all the comments, there's a lot of passion around this. So I appreciate everybody coming to the table. I do think that because of that and what has transpired this evening, I would say that there's a lot more conversation that needs to happen around the subject before policy is enacted, because we want to make sure we have the right balance of the community as well as the short-term rental opportunity. There are good landlords, there are bad landlords, there are good hosts, there are bad hosts, and there are good neighbors, and there are bad neighbors. A lot of the problems and a lot of the things brought up tonight are not specific to Airbnb. And so when we're considering policy about Airbnb, we need to isolate what those specific problems actually are. And so we need that conversation for others. Thank you.
My name is Barrington Nelson. I used to be an Airbnb host in the Southwest over on Comfort Street. I had wonderful success. There was opportunity for me to go all around the world that were traveling here for the Eastern School of Music, doing our RIT, things of that nature, different festivals. I think by cutting out Airbnb would definitely hurt tourism here in Rochester. I think we already have a hard time attracting people. By cutting out Airbnb, it would be worse. I'm now living on Rutgers Street. There's a couple of Airbnb properties on my street. They're very well maintained. I've met some of the guests in the past, all of them are quite amazing. So that's all I have.
Hello, my name is Ricky Harvey, and I'm a super host too. My Airbnbs I host in my personal home. There's a house across the street from me was a rental home that always seemed to find drug dealers to go into that house. And so to alleviate that problem, I bought the house, cleaned the house up. Yards are well landscaped, and as somebody said about killing, the only problems that I have had is that in Maplewood, you have ends of streets. You have good ends of the street and bad ends of the street. And it's getting to the point that I have to say to my guests how far to go down, where to walk and where not to walk, even to warn them against the Maplewood Park because of all of the activities that are going on there. There was a killing on my street, but it was not in an Airbnb. I say that to say we could have killings and murders anywhere. That's not necessarily connected to the Airbnbs. We probably need to do a study to see how many Airbnbs have had, in Rochester, have had a shootout or a killing versus the houses in the community. Another concern that I have in the city is my hosting is primarily for people who come here to work. Amazon, Walmart, Walgreens, Enterprise car wash, Enterprise rental cars. And I'm always wondering, why are our jobs and our corporations and businesses in Spectrum, I hosted Spectrum for 6 months, I hosted Amazon for 6 months, and I'm wondering why all our companies in Rochester are having to go out and bring people in. And what can we do? I really think we need to have meetings to discuss how do we employ people in Rochester to come and do demolitions on buildings. We have people coming into town, staying months at a time just to tear buildings down. And I'd like to see us have some conversations about employing some of these people in our city. Also, we have houses on our streets that are owned by people who have just left the houses, abandoned the houses, and people are coming in, trafficking drugs and doing everything in those houses. I'd like to have some meetings where we talk about how we keep our communities safe for the residents as well as our guests. So I just think we need a lot of meetings. As a super host, it takes a lot to keep. As far as regulation, I think we are over-regulated already in terms of taxes. We're regulated in the sense that if your property is not up to code, you can't stay in the business. We're going to be run out of business by not keeping our property up to code. So I'd like to see us, I'm thankful for this meeting, but we need a lot of more meetings about a better Rochester.
Thank you. Before we get to our last two speakers, I just want to encourage everyone to fill out the survey, so that, I've recorded notes here, it's on the video, but also to just, if you have any additional thoughts, there are specific questions and then there's open-ended questions to get your feedback.
My name is Tara. I've been a city resident since 1998, and I am in duplex in the city. So I live upstairs and my downstairs is my Airbnb. But not only is my downstairs my Airbnb, my downstairs is my guest room. It's where my family comes and stays with me. It's where my next door neighbors on either side, families come to stay because they don't have enough room in their homes. So I am actually offering community to my community. I also want to address about the community aspects of this. I have a guest book inside of my Airbnb that I get tons and tons of compliments on. That's directing everybody to my local places like Netsons. So everybody is actually coming in and using. And as far as the parties concerned, so I have concerns if I have parties at my place. And I think most of us are caring super hosts who absolutely care about our standing with Airbnb, our standing in the neighborhoods. We're not looking to lose anything. We're not looking to hurt our neighborhoods. We want to stick around. We are residents of Greater Rochester or the city. And then just to mention about the whole lack of long-term housing for people. I gotta tell you, this right now, the zoning code says 31 days or less. I hate to say it, if mine's not going back on the market, I will go to midterm rental. I'm not going to be a long-term host again. I was living there for 17 years, and the amount of destruction that I had, I can't go back.
Hello, my name is Ivan Ogado. I'm a city of Rochester resident. Me and my best friend, both from the city, from the Boston area, grew up seeing how messed up that area is. Our vision is we use the money from Airbnb to fund fixing our properties, to provide rentals. We just dropped 8 rentals, within the last month, hopefully rented right now for long-term rentals. This is how we fund this is how we're trying to help the community. We both fully invested in the city, not like the lady said that the two of us are not. My brother, he's a firefighter for the Rochester City. We both live in the city still. We don't want to destroy the city. We like actually making it better. I don't think not one of the neighbors of the properties that we have quite a few, has ever said anything negative to us about anything. If anything, they love us because of how we turn these properties and make it better, make it look good, making them want to make theirs look better too. We have some units in the Monroe area that when we took them, all you could see was drug addicts all around, people injecting themselves. You don't see that anymore in that area. So if anything, we're cleaning up a lot of these areas that are forgotten, and we're just injecting life into that. I mean, just want to say that because we're not big time investors. We're just 2 kids from the block, you know, and talking about big investors coming to the city. We are investing in the city. So, I mean, I guess we are investors because we are investing in trying to uplift this. Everything that we do is in the city, you know, wherever I go is in the city, I work with Strong Museum. We also recommend everybody that comes to the local places in the city. It's just, I mean, if the hotels are doing so bad, make them apartments for people, you know, I mean, you know, like, that's just what I wanted to say, you know.
Thank you.
All right, so before we wrap, I just wanted to state a few things and thank you all. So first and foremost, I just wanted to tell you that my neighbor is a Airbnb. I don't know if he's a super house. I don't know if he's a super house. I'm gonna ask him. And you know, for me, in terms of my experience with that, I've been on the pleasant end of having a neighbor next to me that takes care of, maintains, and all that jazz. But with that being said, I certainly appreciate Council Vice President for convening this forum with me and really bringing attention to that there are some issues in our community related to this subject. And what I've heard tonight, I'm very hopeful that we might find some potential solutions to some of the challenges and also figure out ways that we can support people who are doing this right in our community. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. So thank you all for your time tonight. And Vice President, I'll return to you.
I just wanted to reiterate that everything that you said, but also that there are more opportunities to give comments on the zoning alignment project. I wish I had written the dates, but I know there's one on November 8th, November 16th, and maybe November 25th. That you can participate. You know, we will be having more conversations about this. Certainly, this is not, you know, now I'm going to go and propose legislation. Absolutely not. Your feedback is appreciated, and I hope y'all have a good night.
Hold on, before you guys make any decisions, could you make sure that you have somebody that runs an Airbnb within the conversation? Not just us saying things tonight, but somebody that can answer your questions right there. Like, is Jose Field, I know he owns properties, does he run an Airbnb within those houses and things that he owns?
That, I do not know that, the answer to that question, but certainly, in terms of the council process, we're far away from moving on anything. In terms of the zoning alignment project, actually, there's public input through January, and then I think we don't vote, council doesn't consider a vote on it until the end of 2024, just to be clear on that. So the zoning changes that are being proposed right now, those are zoning changes that will be voted on in 2024, the end of 2024. And then in terms of regulation for anything related to short-term rentals, I'm sure there's going to be a lively conversation amongst council members. This will be a lively conversation at Speak to Council whenever there's anything proposed at some point. And certainly, it will be my intention to ensure that we involve the community and the public in those conversations.
Mary, they do not, the platform, Mary, does not give us that information. Have a good night, everyone.